Alright, today we're going to be finding mean absolute deviation, and it tells us in our instructions to determine the mean absolute deviation for each set of data, round to the nearest hundredth if necessary, then describe what the mean absolute deviation represents. So the first thing we want to do is go through and write down all of our data to find its mean, and we want to mark them off as we're doing them. So I'm going to make an X on mine as I'm doing them. So for instance, I got 2, so I'm going to write 2, and this is step 1 on your notes, plus 5 plus 8 plus 9 plus 7. I'll move this over just a little bit, refocus. Plus 6 plus 3 plus 5 plus 1 and plus 4. Now what I normally do is I count my numbers just to make sure I didn't miss one, even though I marked them off. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 numbers, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I know I got everything. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add all that together and then divide it by the number of numbers we have, and we count at 10, so it's going to be divided by 10, and that's going to tell us our mean. So let's go ahead and put that into our calculator right quick. Here's 2 plus 5 plus 8 plus 9 plus 7 plus 6 plus 3 plus 5 plus 1 plus 4. I'm going to hit enter. It gives me 50, and then I'm going to divide that, hit the division button, by 10, and that gives me 5. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and write that down. That gives me 5. And 5 is what we call my mean of the data. It's my average. So now we're going to go ahead and move on to step 2 in our notes. And step 2 is that what we're going to do is we're going to find the distance that each one of these values is from our mean. So we want to find the distance from the mean, but we want to take the absolute value of it. And what that means is an absolute value, I'm going to write this on here, absolute value, you'll use this a lot in high school, and they're going to have these brackets, and whatever number goes in here is always going to be positive, equals a positive number. It doesn't matter if it's negative or not. So the fastest way to do this is just keep in mind that you're going to do subtraction, but you're going to ignore the negative sign in your calculator, and everything you write will be positive. So let me show you what I mean. Let's go and take all this data and put it in. So I'm going to draw brackets because I'm putting it into brackets. So my first number is 2. Right up here, I'm going to cross it off as I do it. So I'm going to have 2 minus my mean, which is 5. And so what we really have is we have our number minus the mean. So that's what we're doing for every one of these problems, for each one of these numbers. And then we're going to put that's equal to, and then I'm going to do my next one. I'm going to do 5 minus the mean, and then I'm going to do 8 minus the mean, and I'm going to do 9. I'll do that one here. So I'm going to do 9 minus the mean of 5, and I'll do 7 minus the mean, and 6 minus the mean, and we'll do 3 minus the mean, and 5 minus the mean, and 1 minus the mean, and our last number is 4 minus the mean. So remember, I put these special brackets around here. I'm going to move it up now. We have all of our data checked off. 10 numbers. We have 10 if we count. We have 10 numbers. So now what we got to do is we're just going to work these all out. So let me show you what I mean, and let's look at the calculator. So the first one we had 2 minus 5. Right? And if I go ahead and I put that in and hit enter, it's going to give me a negative 3. But because we wrote that statement, that expression, inside of absolute value brackets, we're going to take that as a positive number. So let's go ahead and write that answer down. So instead of writing a negative 3, we're going to write a positive 3. And then we got 5 minus 5, that's 0. 8 minus 5 gives me 3. 9 minus 5 gives me 4. 7 minus 5 gives me 2. 6 minus 5 gives me 1. 3 minus 5, now if I were to put this into my calculator, it would have given me a negative 2. But we're going to go ahead and write it as a positive 2 because it's in these brackets, which means that it makes everything a positive number. 5 minus 5 is 0. 1 minus 5 is 4. And 4 minus 5 is 1. So now we've gotten all of our numbers. So now that we've got this, we want to move to the next step. We want to go to step 3. Alright, so step 3 is we're going to take the average. Let me keep this so we can see all of our numbers. We're going to take the average of all of our answers. So in other words, all these numbers, we're going to find the average of them. And when we find that average, that is going to be the mean absolute deviation. And that is in other words, it's the mean of the distance that each one of these numerical values is from the mean. So let's go and see what that looks like. So I'm going to mark these off as I do them. So I'm going to go ahead and do step 3. We have 3 plus 0. Now I know we didn't have to write the 0, but I want to write it because I want to show you that we're using each one of these numbers. Let me refocus that. And then I have plus 3 plus 4 plus 2 plus 1 plus that 2 plus 0 plus 4 plus 1. And the key thing is, we know that we had 10 numbers starting out with. We should still have 10 numbers being added together. And here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then when we get done adding this all together, we're going to divide it by the number of numbers that we added up, right? So we're going to divide it by the number of data that we added up. And so we have 10 digits, so we're dividing by 10. And that's going to equal our mean absolute deviation. And we'll be done. So let's go and put these in the calculator and let's see what we come up with. Alright, so I'm just going to, your calculator will allow you to add all these numbers at one time. So I'm just going to add them all up first. That's the first thing I'm going to do. So 3 plus 0 plus 3 plus 4 plus 2 plus 1 plus 2 plus 0 plus 4 plus 1. Oh, hold on. Wrong key. Plus 1. Alright, so now I have all my digits put in. I'm going to hit enter. It gives me 20. And now I'm going to divide that by 10, which was the number of data that we added up, the number that we inputted. So we're going to go ahead, hit enter. That's going to give me 2. And now let's go ahead and write that down on our paper. So my answer is 2. It is my mean absolute deviation. So let's go ahead and we'll document that on our paper. So I'm going to go back down. Okay, and I'm going to put the mean absolute deviation. And for short, I'm just going to put MAD, equals 2. So that's part of my answer. Part of my answer is complete now. And the next thing I'm going to put, it says that it wanted us to round to the nearest hundredth. Notice that we didn't have a decimal. It was an even number, so we didn't have to round. If we would have had to round to the hundredths place, we could have, right? And remember, 4 or less, let it rest. 5 or greater, we have to round the number up that's before it. When we look at the meaning, because then it says, then describe, right here, what the mean absolute deviation represents. So we want to describe what it represents, and it represents the average distance each data value is from the mean. And so let's go ahead and make a statement. We're going to say this is the average distance each data value is from the mean is to siblings. So it's the average distance each data value is from the mean is to siblings. So notice this talks about the number of siblings. So for writing a verbal statement, we want to make sure that we mention that the siblings is what we are measuring. And that's what this represents. So go ahead and try the next one on your own. See how you do. If you have a question, raise your hand. I'll be more than happy to help you. Make sure you use your Cornell notes. Flip back to them and look at them as you need them. And because they do show you all the steps. And all these steps need to be done in order. Make sure you don't miss any numbers too. Be marking the numbers off in the table as you input them to make sure that you got all of them.